Okay. So one of the interpretations are that what Yaakov saw in his dream was the future, that the Bnei Yisrael will be in Golus. And why were there 4 rungs to the ladder? Because generally speaking, there are 4 Golus. And there are many, again, different, you'll find different ways of explaining it. The one rung was the Golus Mitzrayim, the Jews went out of Egypt. The other Golus was the Golus that we had with Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. And then one rung stands for the Golus that we had in the times of Purim and the time of Chanukah. And the 4th one is the Golus we're in now, which is Rome. It destroyed the second base of English. So one of the things you can see from this prophecy is that the 4 Golus are on a ladder. What does that mean? It means that these 4 times that we were in Golus and Hashem took us out, it wasn't just one time, another time, another time, another time. What's a ladder? A ladder means that you're climbing the ladder. It's a progression. And as you climb the ladder, you get closer to the top. Saying that means that every time that we were in Golus and we went out, it wasn't that something happened and then it ended and another thing happened, but it was all part of a process that's going to lead to the ultimate Geula, which means the fact that we went out of Golus in Mitzrayim. That was a stepping stone, that was a preparation for the next stage to go out of Golus with the story of Babylon. And that prepared us for the story of Purim. And that prepared us for the story, each Golus that we went out, we were raised a step higher, getting closer to the final where we'll go out of Golus completely, which is the 4th rung. That's Edom. And that's now.
Can you repeat? It was Galut, Push, Purim, and what was the second?
So there's one interpretation that the 1st rung is Mitzrayim. The 2nd one is Babel. The 3rd one is Purim and Chanukah, which is Paras and also Yavan. And the 4th one is Edom, which is Rome that destroyed the second base of English. The Golus we're in now is called Golus Edom.
Thank you.
Sorry, the first one is Persia and Greece.
One interpretation of the first one is to make it easier. One interpretation that we don't count Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was like sort of a different category. That was the source of all the Golus. So then the first one would be Babel. If you want to make that easier, Babel, Babylon. The second one was Persia in the time of Purim. The 3rd one was the Greeks in the time of Chanukah. And the 4th one is Rome, which has destroyed the second base of English. That's called Edom.
How do you call this class then?
How do you call what?
What's the subject for this class?
This is Moshiach, or Geula, but related to Chanukah. So the way Chassidus and Kabbalah explain Chanukah, we see more, we can understand more the connection to Geula. I'll explain what that means. I don't think I ever gave this class here. I know I gave this class in the 2nd level, but what is the main difference between the way Chassidus or Kabbalah explain a holiday and the way you understand the holiday from a general perspective without Chassidus? The general difference is like this, that when you study Torah about a general holiday, we're studying about a story that happened a long time ago, and that story had a big impact on our history, and therefore we thank Hashem for taking us out of Egypt, we thank Hashem for giving us the Torah, we thank Hashem for all the things that happened, even though it happened a long time ago, but as a result of that, we have what we have today. I would actually introduce this with a personal story that happened. I used to give a class where I taught Tanya in a yeshiva, but the yeshiva didn't allow the students to study Tanya. They weren't into Tanya. They didn't even allow them. So they had to go to a shul outside, and over there I would teach the class. So one of the boys said that today we had a session where the head of the yeshiva said you can ask any question you want on any subject. So everybody asked different questions. So he asked the teacher a question: what is your opinion about studying Chassidus? He knew his opinion, but he wanted to hear how he explains it. So he told him, I'll tell you a story about myself, about himself. This was the head of the yeshiva. And he said, a number of years after I got married, I started to have a little bit of a difficulty with the chagim, with the holidays. I felt when I was in yeshiva, I enjoyed the holidays so much more. And now it didn't have any fire to it. Sit down by the table and you say that over 3,000 years ago, the Jews went out of Mitzrayim. Comes to Purim, you talk about a story that happened 2,000 years ago, or a story that happened 2,500 years ago. And you talk about it, yes, but I didn't have any fire. And I know it bothered me. Why don't I enjoy the Chagim the way I used to? So I spoke to a close friend. It was embarrassing, but I spoke to a close friend I trusted. And he said, for a problem like this, I think you should go to a Hasidic Rebbe. So he went to a Hasidic Rebbe, was called the Square Rebbe. There's this town in upstate New York, in Monsey, it's called Monsey, and they have Hasidim there. And there's a town there called Square Town. And I guess, I don't know where they come from, probably somewhere in Russia, there was a town called Square. And they transplanted that town here in the United States, where these Hasidim live there. And their Rebbe lives there. He was a descendant of a very great tzaddik who was called Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, Rabbi Twersky. So he came to this Rebbe and he told him about the situation. And the Rebbe said to him, you should study, I'll give you a book of Chassidus that you should study. And when you look at that book, you'll start enjoying the Chagim more. And he gave him the name of a book called Ma'or Einayim. It was written by his ancestor, Reb Nachum of Chernobyl. And the rabbi said, since I studied this book, I started to enjoy Chagim more. So therefore, I suggest that you should not study Chassidus. So everybody was, what? He just finished saying that it helped him. So he explained something. This was his explanation. He said, when you're in yeshiva, all the students are together. Whenever one of the Chagim come, everybody is talking about what it says about this and what it says about that. What's the halacha? When do you do this? How do you do that? There's a lot of commotion about the holiday. So it's not a problem because you're enjoying it. It's like the wind is blowing, the current is flowing. There's a lot of excitement going on. So you're carried away with the excitement. Later in life, when you're more on your own and you're not with the crowd like in the yeshiva, that's when you're going to start feeling a problem with the Chagim. You're going to lose the fire. And that's the time that if you're going to study Chassidus now, when you're still young men in the yeshiva, you become a little bit immune to it. And later, it's not going to help you. So better don't study Chassidus now. Wait till later when it'll be such a problem, then you'll study Chassidus. That was his suggestion. So the first thing is, he made a mistake. Chassidus is not a medication. It's not like antibiotic that you can get immune to it. It's a way of thinking. It's a certain perspective, a certain way of looking and understanding what the Chagim are all about. If you look at it from a certain perspective, then you start enjoying it differently. So you can't say to a person, it's like telling somebody, don't use your brain too much, because right now you don't need it so much. And you're going to become immune to intellect, to logic. Wait till you get older, you go out into the world, that's when you need to really study. Then you'll use your brain. So you don't get it. You don't get immune to intellect. The more you use your brain, the more it gets developed. But I want to explain what is the difference between the way you look at Chagim from a Hasidic perspective and the way you look at it from a general perspective. Why is it that the Hasidic perspective gives us more excitement, more life, more fire in celebrating a holiday? And the same would be with Chanukah. So the answer is like I started to say before, that generally speaking, we look at a holiday, it's something major happened many years ago in the past. And we remember it to thank Hashem, and because it helps us for now. Like somebody once gave a mushal, that a person was traveling, and he came to a fork in the road. He didn't know which way to go, to the right or to the left. There's no signs. Looks around, and then he notices, oh, there's a sign on the floor. There's a pole, it's on the floor. One arrow says this city, the other arrow says another city. Amazing, but he has one problem. How do I set up the sign? If I pick it up, I can make it this way or that way. So I still don't know which way to go. And you follow me? So then he realized, but there's a third arrow. That arrow points to where I came from. I know which city I came from. So if I set it up pointing this way, now these two arrows will be in the right direction. The mashal is that in Judaism, we look back to where we came from. We came from Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Chanukah, Purim. We look back to where we came from. And that'll guide us how to go further with Torah and mitzvahs in the future, which is a very beautiful explanation. And how is Chassidus different? So basically, it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus that when a holiday comes around, it's not just celebrating the past, but it means that this holiday, this Yontif that happened 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, on this day, it happens again. How could you say it happens again? We're not living in the Greeks, we're living in America, and there's no Greeks, and what does it mean happens again? So this is the way it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus. What does it mean it's happening again? Everything that happened then, and everything that happens all the time, happens on two levels. Something happens down here physically. Let's say right now, where we're living with October 7th. October 7th was a terrible tragedy. But what happened here was Arabs who were anti-Semites, who were vicious people, malicious people, attacked Jews in a horrible way. But if it happened down here, that means something must have happened up there in the spiritual realm, in the heavenly court, that's the reason why it happened down here. On the other hand, after October 7th, when Israel began to fight back, and they were able to destroy Hezbollah, and they were able to destroy the Hamas, leadership, and we saw miracles upon miracles. Iran attacked us, and there was one miracle, another miracle. The fact that miracles happen down here means that something happened up there that caused the miracle. That's one of the most basic ideas of Kabbalah and Chassidus. That whatever happens down here has to happen up there. So it means if there's a miracle here, like the sea splits, that means something happened in the spiritual realm, an unusual light of Hashem was shining, and as a result of that, something changed and happened down here, which is also unusual. You mind closing the door? Yes, Diana.
So you say something up there that's something negative. There's something negative like that we're doing down here. It's coming from something negative up there.
No, I'm saying the reverse. That there's a certain light of Hashem, which is Gevura, judgment, up there.
Because what we're doing down here.
Well, the reason for that is because something that for some reason. But because that's when there's negative. No, on the contrary. When there's something positive, when there's a miracle, let's say the sea split, that means that up there was a light of Hashem that shined of Chesed, a light of Hashem that was revealed. That's an unusual light. And as a result of that, there's an unusual miracle that happened down here. I mean, to give a mashal, it says that one of the ways of understanding Hashem and the world is comparing it to the neshama and the guf, the neshama and the body. So the world, the universe is a huge body, and Hashem is the soul that gives life to the body. If you see a person, you see a person that you see this person every day, and they're jumping up and down, they're clapping their hands, and the face is shining, what do you think happened? Something must have happened. Either they got engaged, or their sister got engaged, or their friend got engaged, or they won the lottery of $1 billion. Something really exciting happened. What you see with your eyes is something physical, that they're clapping their hands, they're jumping up and down, or even see their face shining. but that's what you see with your eyes. The reason for this is something happened internally, which is they're experiencing joy, or the reverse. You see somebody crying and sad. What you see with your eyes is tears and sadness, but something's on inside, something happened that makes them sad. So the same thing with the world. When we see something happening in the world physically, that means something's happening in the soul of the world, in the spiritual realm, in Shamayim, something is happening, and that caused this to happen here. Actually, even though this is Kabbalah, but there's a place in the Chumash which says something very similar. In the Chumash, there's a pasuk in Devarim where Hashem says to Moshe these words: "You see that I gave the nation of Amori into your hands, that you've defeated him. You see that you've defeated him." The war didn't happen yet. What does it mean you defeated him? So Rashi says, this is Rashi, takes it of course from the Gemara and Medrash, and says like this, that Hashem took the angel that's in charge of this nation, and Hashem took that angel in front of Moshe and told Moshe to step on it with his feet. And now that he was able to defeat the angel, he knew that down here we'll be able to defeat the nation. In other words, the fact that the Jews went to war and they were able to defeat that nation was because Moshe defeated the source of the nation up there. So it means when something happens down here, it's because something happened up there.
But is it a punishment or is it just a result? Like, is it what we see bad things here?
So think of the mashal that I gave you. When a person is very happy and therefore they're smiling, is that a punishment? What is it? It's just a manifestation of what's going on inside. Because inside I feel happy, that's why outwardly I'm smiling. But when I see a person smiling, that's not the main thing. The main thing is what they're feeling inside. In fact, it's possible to have a very exciting thing happen. Let's say you won a lottery that's worth $500 million, but you don't want to get a lot of cousins and relatives that you didn't know about. So you're very quiet, you pretend that nothing happened. Inside, your kishkis are doing somersaults. Like inside, you're planning what you're going to buy and what you're going to get, what you're going to do. Outwardly, nothing's going on. So what's the main thing? The main thing is what's on the outside or what's on the inside. So this way Chassidus explains it, that when, let's say, it was Kriyat Yamsuf, the sea split. Outside, we saw a miracle. Wow, this is amazing. But something bigger was going on in Shamayim, and that caused the sea to split. So the Arizal says that what happened in Shamayim happens every single year on the 21st day of Nisan. What happened when the Jews went out of Egypt happens every single year on the 15th day of Nisan. When Hashem gave the Torah at Har Sinai on Shavuos, every single year on the 6th day of Sivan, whatever happens spiritually happens again. Down here, we don't see anything happening. Like the person who won the lottery and you don't see anything. But spiritually, it happens once again, every single year. So that means that when we're celebrating a holiday, we're not only celebrating something of the past, it's actually happening now. But it's happening up there, we don't see it down here. Understood? So the same as with Chanukah. These 8 days, there were miracles. That means that up there, during these 8 days, something amazing was happening, something unusual, unprecedented happened up there. So down here, something happened which was unprecedented, the miracles. So according to the Arizal, and according to Chassidus, what we're saying is down here we don't see those miracles, but every year during the 8 days of Chanukah, that same light that was shining the first time shines every single year from the first day of Chanukah to the 8th day of Chanukah. But now the question is, that's a good reason for all the angels to be happy, and they should all be celebrating, because up there they see a lot of lights shining. What about us? Why should we? Why does it affect me? So the answer is, of course, it must be that it affects me. That means that if this is a time where there's godly light shining in an unprecedented way, if I can absorb that, light, it will give me tremendous spiritual strength that from this day on, I'll be able to serve Hashem more because I absorbed this light that was shining on Chanukah or Purim or Pesach or Shavuos or whatever Yom Tov it is. So it's not just something of the past, it's about how can I absorb, how can I take in and retain that light, which means that I will now become stronger in a spiritual sense because I absorbed this new light that was shining on this Yom Tov, which is Chanukah or Purim or whatever. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is really like where you're getting at, but it left me a little curious. So everything that happens here, like with the story of Hanukkah and the miracle, it was a manifestation of positive energy, positive spiritual energy. Where does that positive spiritual energy come from? Is there a reason it happens in certain moments? It's triggered? Like Hanukkah, the date. Like, why did it happen that date? Is there any?
Right. So, first of all, generally speaking, it happened as a result of the fact that the Jews were being challenged by the Greeks. And we know that what really changed the circumstances was that Matisyahu and his family got together and they said, we're ready to give up our lives and not let this continue. We're going to fight them. So through their actions, that they had such dedication and such, they were so strong and so committed, even to the point where they were ready to give up their lives, because how could a group of, Rashi says it was a group of 12 people, fight a huge army of the Greeks? But they said to themselves, we're going to fight to the last drop of blood. Whatever we can accomplish, we'll accomplish. So this brought down this new light of Hashem up there, and that manifested down here as the miracle. That's number one. Number two, I still can't ignore the fact that there is something about the date also. What is it about the date? So Chanukah happened on the 25th day of Kislev. That's the date. That was yesterday. So there's a story in the Medrash that says when God told Moshe to build the Mishkan, the day that he told them to do it was the day after Yom Kippur. They got straight to work. They worked. When was it finished? On the 25th day of Kislev. Same day as Chanukah. Normally they should have, okay, now everything is ready, let's set it up. So Hashem gave a command, no, don't set it up, wait. So they waited, Kislev, Teves, Shvat, on the 23rd day of Adar, which means 4 months later, that's when he was told, okay, now you can set it up. In fact, there were a lot of Jews that because of that were doubting whether it's even true that there's going to be such a thing as a Mishkan where Hashem's presence will come down. Because look, it's all ready, and yet it didn't happen. It says the Medrash, there were people who were Litzani Hadar, means they were scoffers, they were making fun of Moshe, that this will never happen. But then on the 23rd day of Adar, Moshe got a command, now you can set it up. It still wasn't finished, because after they set it up at night, Hashem, now take it apart. The next day, now set it up again. At night, now take it apart. This happened for 7 days. And the 8th day, I'm sorry. On the 8th day, he finally set it up. So it says in the Medrash that the month of Kislev doesn't mean the month. It means there's an angel that's in charge of everything in the world. There's an angel that's in charge of the month. Like Kislev has this angel. The angel came to Hashem and said, it's not fair. I was supposed to host this big celebration of inaugurating the new Mishkan, and it was taken away from me and was given to the month of Nisan. So Hashem said, okay, I'll pay you back. In the future, there's going to be inauguration of the Mishkan, of the Beis HaMikdash on this day, the 25th of Kislev. So that's the day of Chanukah. So there is a connection between the dates, which means that the date is already, something about this day is conducive. And that's why we find an interesting thing. There are a lot of dates that have special times. It's more than once that miracles or good things happen exactly on the same day. Or the same as the reverse. Like the first temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. Second temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. A lot of other things in history of Jews, negative things happened during the 3 weeks on Tisha B'Av. means that's the time where Hashem's attribute of Geula is shining.
Is that because there's like pre-existing spiritual energy
Yes,
already?
yes. So here there's something pre-existing in the month of Kislev, and that's why it was conducive for a miracle to happen. And these were the circumstances that brought it out. So to answer the question, what do I benefit from the fact that there's godliness being a godly light on that day? The answer is, even though I don't feel it or I don't see it, but subconsciously we absorb this godly light. I would compare it, just like there are special places in the world, you say this is a special place, there's also special times, the same idea. In other words, when you hear a story that someone traveled to Israel, went to the Kotel, and when they went to the Kotel, something happened and they were just became a totally changed person. They got emotional, they felt very connected to their Jewish identity, and this happens all the time. And different people react in different ways. Some people change their life in a big way, some people change their life in a little way. There are many people that said the day that I came to the Kotel and I was standing there, I made a decision that I'm not going to marry out. Something in them woke up that made them feel more connected, and they gave up a relationship that they felt very strongly about. What is it? What happened in the Kotel? What did they see? The answer is they didn't see anything. It's just a wall. But in the Kotel, which is a place, there's a divine presence, there's a godly presence there. Subconsciously, it gives a person strength. So just like there are places in the world, like Israel, or Yerushalayim, or the Kotel, that there's a more concentrated presence of Hashem here than any place else, there's certain days of the year that there's a more concentrated presence of Hashem than any other day of the year. One of those days come around once a week, it's called Shabbos. Another one of those days is the holidays. Every Yom Tov is a day that there's a more concentrated, more pronounced presence of Hashem in the world. And what it does to me is, if I absorb it and I contain it, it'll make me stronger spiritually. And just like then it brought redemption to the Jewish people, now also if we absorb this strength and we use it in serving Hashem properly, we can bring redemption now. But then there's another question. Is there any difference if there's redemption, if there's a stronger presence of Hashem on Chanukah and Purim and Pesach and Shavuos, every Yom Tov, is there a difference between one holiday and another? And the answer is yes, there's a difference. And the difference is each one gives us strength in a different way. It's like saying all food, if it's decent food, is good nutrition, it makes us stronger. So you're basically saying there's no difference between apple and oranges and grapefruits and bread and milk. No. Each one strengthens us, but in a different way. This is vitamin C, and this is vitamin B, and this is vitamin D, and this is something good for the immune system. This is good for the bones. This is good for the blood. This has calcium. But they're all not all the same. They're all the same in the sense that they all have nutritional value. But what's the nutritional value? Everything is different. Same thing spiritually. Every Chag, there's a godly presence in the world that strengthens us subconsciously in a spiritual way. But in which way it strengthens us, each Chag is in a different way than the other. And that's why we study Chassidus. We want to know what is it that's being revealed on Pesach, what's being revealed on Shavuot, and then from there we take it. So if that's the case, in what area of Yiddishkeit am I going to be strengthened this holiday versus a different holiday? So when Chanukah comes around, that's the same thing that we focus on. What happened then and what's happening now spiritually, that we can say this gives us the strength in a certain area of my connection with Hashem. What's that area? Okay. We have 4 minutes. No, I have to tell you what. We need another introduction. And we'll have to continue next week. The introduction is that in every one of the stories of the history, especially stories that had to do with Geula, there was a different enemy that was attacking us. For example, Pesach, it was Mitzrayim, Egypt. Purim, it was Amalek. If you know the story of Purim, Haman was a descendant of this nation called Amalek. And they attacked us when we went out of Egypt. And Amalek, there's a mitzvah in the Torah that we have to aggressively get rid of this nation called Amalek. They're a very big threat to our relationship with Hashem. So that's Purim. Chanukah was the Yevanim, the Greeks. Rome is Rome. Babylon is Babylon. So just like physically, these were different nations, spiritually, each one of these nations contains a different negative spiritual energy that's trying to block us and fight us and not allow us to serve Hashem properly. So if we know what that negative energy is and what it means to overcome it, that'll help us understand what kind of strength Hashem gives us on this day, that we have the power to overcome certain. So like this, it basically means that there are different kind of Yetzaharas. To make it simple, there are different Yetzaharas in life. There's the Yetzahara for money, there's the Yetzahara for power, there's the Yetzahara for food, the Yetzahara for things that relate to tznius, there's the Yetzahara for other things. Every kind of avera, so to speak, there's a different kind of Yetzahara. In the language of Chassidus, it means there's a different klipa energy. That's the driving force behind Mitzrayim. A different one, the driving force behind the Yevanim, the Greeks on Chanukah, and a different one behind So we have to look at the story, what happened, what was going on then, and from that we get a little bit of an understanding, based on what it says in the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidus, what was the klipa at the time, and how did we overcome it, and that every year when Chanukah comes around, that's the kind of vitamin that we get spiritually. And it lasts for a year. It's like a booster shot. We get an injection. It lasts for 1 year. And the next year, Chanukah, we need another injection. But it's about a specific area of Yiddishkeit. So what's the specific area of Yiddishkeit with the Yevanim? So we'll have to continue. But the general idea, just that you should be able to fall asleep at night, get some idea, is that the Greek, their thing was, we find an interesting thing, that when the Romans attacked us, they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. When the Babylonians attacked us, they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. How come when the Greeks attacked us and they conquered the Beis Hamikdash, they didn't destroy it? They allowed it to be there. They used it in a negative way, but yes.
So the Babylonians and the
Romans
wanted to, they thought if they could destroy the Beis Hamikdash physically, like erase something, a kingdom that the Jewish people had, when it comes to Islam, I guess, like the Greeks, they wanted to actually unkosher it so that their holiness of them would be erased. Like they made a trade, they put a pig inside of the
You're on the right track. Yes, that's what I'm going
part of
to.
it.
That is part of it, yes. That what they did, and that shows what they're all about, but we'll need to explain it more, is that they weren't out to destroy sort of the practical things that we do. They were out, what they did was they took pigs and they brought them as sacrifices on the altar. That was the biggest disgrace that could be. But it's different than destroying, which means that what they wanted to do was to take away the holiness to Yiddishkeit. In other words, they wouldn't have minded if we keep and continue to do certain things that are practical in our religion. Yeah, you can do this, you can do that. That's the way you live. But there's something about the godliness and the spirituality, especially in Torah, that's what they wanted to destroy. In other words, to take away the holiness in our observance. They would believe in Judaism as a cultural thing. By the way, there are such people today that they keep traditional Judaism, but more as a cultural thing. You ask them, do you believe in God? Some people tell you, I don't know, I'm not sure. Why do you do these things? Because I feel very Jewish, and this is culturally what Jews used to do. They ate chicken soup on Friday night, so I like to eat chicken soup. My mother made latkes when it came to Chanukah, so I keep latkes. It's a nice story. We play games. The family gets together. So it's more about a cultural thing than a spiritual thing and a holy thing. And in essence, really, Chanukah that's the kind of klipa it was. It wasn't a klipa that was out to destroy the technical structure of Judaism as much as taking out the holiness from what we are doing. How specifically, we'll have to wait for next week.
Erase it from their neshama, in their
It's right. It's like when you make something impure, what does it say? They made the oils impure. It doesn't say they destroyed all the oil.
Because they made another business, so the first one destroyed it.
But when you look at oil that's impure, you see no difference between oil that's pure and oil that's impure. There's something deeper that's taken away when you make it impure, and you can't see it with your eyes, something spiritual. In a certain sense, they would have allowed Jews to study Torah, to do certain things, but to study Torah on their terms, not the way we study Torah. What is the difference? We'll go into next time. A good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos and happy Hanukkah.
Should go from the Geula to the ultimate Geula. And we're asking Hashem, please, this is the perfect time, God, to make your miracles. Like Chanukah, come on.
We have to start
Don't wait any
miracles
longer.
from ourselves too.
We have to make
Moshiach now. Thank you.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Mhm.
No, I'm saying.